Last week we started talking about Venn diagrams, two-way tables. What I want to look at today is how they can kind of tie together. So the worksheet that I attached for you to look at, I want to talk about the first two problems, and then I'm going to have you try the next two problems on your own, and then you can check and see how you did on that. The first thing on this first problem, it's a typo. Really should be A and S here, not B. But what they're looking at is letters in a person's name. So the Venn diagram looks at if they had an A in their name, and that was represented by the circle on the left, or if they had an S in their name, and that was represented by the circle on the right. And notice there's numbers in each of the sections that we talked about when we did talk about Venn diagrams. Well, based on that Venn diagram, we're going to try to fill in the two-way table, and then we're going to try to answer some questions related to either looking at the Venn diagram or the two-way table. Now, a little notation, when you look at the two-way table, they have two columns there. They have an A column, and then they have an A with a little, looks like a little apostrophe on it. That's not A. So in other words, they're looking at ones that had A and then ones that did not have A. Same thing for S. They had S and then there's S with that little apostrophe. Well, that means not S. All right, but let's see if we can fill in our two-way table. Well, what I would probably start with is some of the totals. For instance, if I look at all the values in there, I've got 7, I've got 3, I've got 10, and I've got 2. So that should be my entire sample space, which means that's going to be the total for everybody that they looked at. So in this case, if I added all those together, the 7 plus the 3 plus the 10 plus the 2, I would end up with 22 total people that they looked at. So that's going to go right here in that spot. All right, well, let's look at some of the other totals maybe we could label. Let's start with the S's. Well, if we look at the people that had the S's, we would look at this entire circle. Well, all the numbers inside that circle would be the 3 and the 10. So we had 13 total that had S's, which means there had to be 9 that did not have an S. And that's because we know in that total there, we should have 22. If I look at the A's, well, I'd be looking at everything inside the A circle. Well, that's 7 and 3, so the total that had A's would be 10. That means the ones that did not have A's would be 12, because again, we needed 22. Well, when I made those two circles, the red circle and the blue circle, they overlapped there in the middle. And that was 3 people. So that means there was 3 people that fit into, yeah, I have an A and I have an S in my name. So where that overlapped, the S and the A would be 3. And based on that, we should be able to fill in the rest of the table. Because we know going across here, all the S's should have a total of 13. Right now I have 3 of them, so that means I had 10 in that one. Then I have, as far as ones that had a total of 10. I already have 3 of them, so that leaves me with 7. And I could go one of 2 ways. I could look at the ones that are not A's. I've got 10, so that tells me I have 2 more to get to 12. Or I could have gone the other way, the not S's. I had 7, so I needed 2 more to get to 9. So that would be filling in my two-way table. Now we're going to see if we can answer the questions. Well, the first question is, how many students in the class were surveyed? Well, that was actually the first thing we figured out. That was the entire sample space. So there were 22 students that were surveyed. Number 2 wants to know how many people have an A in their name. Well, I could go one of 2 places. I could look at the A circle, the blue circle, and that was 10. Or I could look at the A column, And the A column had 3 and 7, which again gives me 10. Lastly, they want to know how many people have an A or an S in their name. So remember, that means it could be A. So A's, we said, were 10. Plus, it could be S. Well, if I look at the S's, that's 13. But I've got to take out the ones that were both A and S, and that was 3. So if I look at this one, if I add those two together, that's 23. I take out the 3. So the number that could have A or S would have been 20. And notice that's really the union, which would have been all of these values, the 7, the 3, and the 10, added together. So that's an example of starting with the Venn diagram and then using that information to fill in the two-way table and to to answer the questions. All right, let's look at an example now where we start with a two-way table. We're going to have to try to fill in the Venn diagram, and then we'll answer the questions after that. So the two situations again are looking at letter of A, letter of S. And I'm going to use the two-way table to fill in my Venn diagram. Well, I always start on the inside and work my way out. So in other words, I'm going to try to fill in this section right here, right now. Well, that would be the ones that had A and had S. Well, if I look at my two-way table, the ones that had A and S were 12. Now I'm going to focus on one circle at a time. So let's focus on the A circle. Well, the A circle should include all of the ones that had A in their name. Or in other words, everything in this column. Well, the total there was 15. However, I've already got 12 of those. So I know that leaves me with 3 more that I need to fill in there. Now let's move on to the S's. Everything in the S circle should be talking about this row. Well, in that row, it says a total of 16. I've already got 12 of those, though, so that leaves me with 4 that would go in that section. So right now I have 3 and 12, so that's 15, plus 4, so that's 19. But remember, the entire sample space included 26 people. So if I have 19 and I need 26, that leaves me 7 here on the outside. So don't forget about the ones on the outside because those are important as well. All right, now let's see if we can answer the questions. How many students were surveyed? Well, that was the total. How many people have A in their name? Well, that's adding up everything in the A circle, or that's looking at the total in the A column. Either way, I've got 15. How many have A or S in their name? Well, I can go through and think about there were 15 with A. There were 16 with S, but there were 12 with both. So if I do that, I've got 31 minus 12, or I have 19. And remember, another way of checking that is adding up all the numbers, the 3, 12, 4, and that also gives us 19. So those are a couple examples going either Venn diagram to two-way table or two-way table to Venn diagram. All right, here's what I'd like you guys to try. This time they give you the situation. So in a class of 30 students, 14 have an A in their name, 20 have an S in their name, 8 people have both an S and an A in their name. That's the situation we're given. So from that situation, you're going to try to fill in the Venn diagram, and then you're going to try to fill in the two-way table. Then the next problem, same idea. This time, they give you a situation where in a class of 20 students, 12 have an A in their name, 9 have an S in their name, and 6 people have neither an S or an A. And then they want us to use a Venn diagram or a two-way table, or we could create both, and determine how many students have both an A and an S in their name. So I'd like you guys to go ahead and try those two problems. Once you finish those two problems, you can then check the next video. In the next video, we'll talk about how you would attack those two